Sevilla, excuse me, and then 26 will follow that, and if there's money left, which there won't be this year, but it'll be the first part of next year, would be Pond 20. And we presented this document this morning to the, what we're based have a special on John put together, but the theater in particular is similar to last. The big difference year over year is we're going from GeoWeb, which was last year's installation, to ArmorMax, which is the current engineering guidelines from Tetra Tech in the district, and what we're doing in Gateway. It's a more robust, if costlier, replenishment and repair, but it's going to happen as we're having hearings. So, you probably another question.
Why did you say with the pond?
No, not John Gregory. I'm sorry. I said John. I'm very sorry.
John Hammond?
Doug Xander, excuse me.
I wanted Diane to be sure she got that
Aye.
correct.
Hey, Bob,
We also got the one which will be, but it's going to get very important. Down, talk with them a while going on in the Trentino state. Based on what from that, we'll be putting forth a proposal for the other communities to follow suit and do the same thing. We can't mandate this. This is going to be a voluntary thing from the deal, but it will definitely be necessary for the stabilization of our banks and to prevent washout and erosion. And I guess kind of the bottom line of it all is if we offer to communities and to neighborhoods, if people choose to not, quote unquote, do the right thing and improve this stuff, well, then put on notice they should be doing something. So if we have future major expenditures, they're neglecting to notice that they should fix this or remedy the problem. Or at least we'll be legally covered, that it won't fall back on committee.
Bob, I have a question. Bob, I have a question regarding what was mentioned at the president's meeting, and maybe my notes are not correct. You said something about the CDD will be funding what?
Yeah, the CDD is going to fund, or we are going to fund, and we've covered this before in this meeting. A resident is going to be responsible for the downspout from his property, his home, to the easement. And if that's clogged or if it's damaged or whatever.
When you say the downspout, though, are you talking about the underground piping to the bubbler?
Physically, the downspout itself.
Just the downspout?
When it leaves the downspout, it goes into a 5-inch line, typically 5-inch line, and then goes out into the pond. So to the extent that that piping is on a resident's property, it's theirs to make sure that it's functioning as designed.
it's either,
Once it enters the easement, if it goes in the easement, from the easement to the pond itself,
That's
then
their
we take responsibility for maintaining and cleaning that piping.
Okay.
it's either the resident or the condo
Or
association.
condo, right.
Yes. Resident, condo, HOA, whatever.
Not HOA. HOA can't be responsible for it.
Anything we're doing like restoration. That's in our easement, so that's why we are doing it.
Hey, Bob, back to the the bank restoration. ArmorMax, you said at one point comes with a much longer warranty. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it's a lifetime warranty.
Lifetime, okay,
So
okay.
it's quite a long one, yes.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that comes from the manufacturer itself as well as the installer, so it's a pretty robust, and I don't think any of that has changed. I know that's what was in there before, and I'm sure it's gonna be in the contract.
How much more expensive per foot are they compared to the other contractor?
Rule of thumb, I'm gonna say 50 cents, 50% higher.
50% higher, okay.
It's not just increased cost, but we're going much further into the ponds. The
Yeah, okay,
one
right.
error, I guess, of the GeoWeb is it pretty much stopped a foot into the water feet, whereas the ArmorMax carries in much further. So it should be a lot more robust and be less likely to be undercut by storm action
Okay,
and things like that.
Okay. Anything else, Bob?
Let me see. Oh, we have a resident with a problem in Carina Circle, Mrs. DeVivo by name. And I don't know how many of you have seen her tale of woe, but every time it rains, she gets driveway flooding and up to her garage. She has written a number of complaints in this respect to WCI, to Scott, to the world, and unfortunately has not up until very recently been getting any response. So on her behalf, Ponds jumped in to try and assist by contacting WCI, asked them to do the right thing, which in my opinion is put cameras in the piping to see if there's a blockage or whether the non-functioning drainage is just poor engineering design. Well, yesterday they finally responded, and Rhonda Brewer, by name, the senior vice president, issued a letter saying they're going to get this thing fixed, rooted out, blown out, or whatever, and they'll report back to us by this afternoon. Before we had Rhonda's letter, I had engaged Scott to have Morris Riley, who are our camera and inspection people, to authorize them to go in and inspect for us to see what the real root cause is. And if there was a blockage, then we were going to advocate on her behalf so she doesn't have to wait till the lake is turned over. It looks like this may take care of itself, and I may be overly optimistic, but it looks like, at least at this point in time, WCI is finally stepping up. But it has been, this has been going on for months. But we may be at a resolution. So those of you that are familiar with this, you'll at least be aware that something is finally going on. Next,
Bob, you want to comment on aeration?
Yeah. I thought we had a fairly decent meeting this morning with the presidents. We had one irate resident, and his basic issue is he didn't want it in his backyard. He has written a couple of interesting notes to, I guess, to Phil, both specifically and possibly to CDD, I'm not quite sure. But anyway, what we're doing is 100% correct, it's 100% legal, and I don't think he or anybody else will have any objections. All of his complaints are coming from North Carolina, and hopefully he's going to like what's done, if that's possible, when he gets down here. But even if he doesn't, I really don't expect to respond to any more of his questions, because he wants to know every other site that was considered, and why is it going in this neighbor's property to that one, and why is it that's going his, and he's got a major investment, and just on and on and on. So I really don't plan to do very much more with that one. Other than that, the aeration is moving forward very, very well. We've got a number of ponds that are totally completed now, so I can invite the members to go see them, but there's 2, 4, 6, 9 of them that are completely installed and running, and these are the northernmost communities: Trentino Estates, Aviano, Treviso, the one on Trieste is now working entirely, and then when you get around the condos as you come in, the one by the boardwalk is now functioning. We've got 4 more that they're doing directional boring in, and we ought to have the transformers up and running by the end of next week. And that would be Breno, the Monticello neighborhoods, and the large pond across from the guard shack behind Aviano.
So Bob, there are some of these that are already installed, and
yeah, 8 9 of them that are up and running, that are within, old Pelican. There are a lot of cabinets out in the Cypress Grove neighborhoods that people could go look at, but that are the same because they built to our specs. But we've got 9 functioning systems right now in northern Pelican.
so this individual could go and take a look if they're back and.
He had his proxies go out. We suggested that all along, but apparently he didn't like what they told him because he's still objecting.
Okay, well, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah, we took it to Tony and asked him to make sure everything's reviewed and he's comfortable with it. And the answers we have now are that everyone's, it is what it is, and we're certainly legal. We're more than legal with it.
Okay.
You can't please all the people all the time.
Well, you sure try, but you're right. I mean, unfortunately, and quite a few times, quite honestly, when I finished with the gentleman, I thought he was reasonably happy, because I kept telling him, we are going to make sure he's happy when we're done. You know, within reason, I mean, of course, but I don't know, I'm just not communicating effectively, I guess, because every time I think he's happy, I walk away and then I get another, nasty gram.
Well, some, I think, of, just an observation on my part is, that back when that neighborhood was built, WCI built many of the lanais out into the easement. And so a lot of people are thinking that all of that property is theirs, and it's not in the easement. We built a couple years, we did a lanai extension a couple years after that, and we had a representative on the CDD that came back and went, you can't go out quite that far because you'll be in the easement, when in fact some of the early homes on both cul-de-sacs had their lanais all the way out. And so I think therein may lie the crux of some of this, that it's mine, it's always been mine.
Well, clearly this particular individual feels that way. I don't know, where that thought process came from. You may be 100% correct, but, some of his comments are, I don't give you permission and don't you dare go, and, et cetera.
Does he understand that there's an easement on his property?
Yeah.
He
Well,
does?
It's not, but, again, he doesn't bother to look at the facts, he just puts his opinion out there, because in fact, we are not on his property, we are on easements.
Well,
Well, an easement, there's a little difference there.
yeah.
It's his property, but, there's a right of an easement.
Well, and it's not the first time that we as this group have dealt with people objecting to people being on the easement or things going into the easement. We had another member of our community that threatened us with shotguns if we walked in the
Oh, yeah.
easement. I don't know how many of you remember that, but
Oh, who could forget? If we're talking about our friend Mr. Rapp.
yeah, so it's not the first time that questions have come up, because people, but by now people have owned their homes for 10, 15 years almost, some of the early people, and you do start thinking of it as mine.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, Nancy, you're absolutely right. But again, we're doing everything we can to placate him and to try and make him happy, but I'm not quite sure we'll ever get there.
Well, I assure you, it's being checked daily.
Oh, I am certain.
It is.
Hey, Bob,
Most of the other people, and they had some very good legitimate concerns because we didn't do as good a job as we thought we were in communicating. And some people were quite honestly surprised, and that was very unfortunate.
Yeah.
And we take responsibility for that. We thought we were, again, doing a better job than we really were, so.
Well, I think, I think it'll be what it'll be, but
hey, Bob, did I understand you this morning to say that the, the electrical, what do you call it, stanchion or whatever it is, the concrete,
Yeah, the tombstone.
what a tombstone, yeah, that's a good way to put it. The
Right.
tombstone, you're changing that, or are you gonna leave those?
We had some complaints on our early installations.
Yeah, okay,
And
yeah.
apparently, we didn't make the tombstone, the contractor didn't make the tombstone as low as he could have.
Okay,
So we found out what the absolute
Minimum,
minimum
yeah.
was by statute, and that's an FPL or state requirement of 36 inches. So the ones that were initially installed were at 48 inches. We had them taken out and redone at the 36-inch height. And all future installations will be at that 36-inch height as a max.
okay. Anything else from the Ponds group? You're ruining my record today. My record is 2 hours in these meetings, and unless Ron can be very quick.
Oh, he goes next. John goes next.
So, anything else, Bob?
No, I think that's pretty much it. All in all, I think we have to be reasonably pleased with how well this is going, to be honest with you.
Good, thank you. Capital assets, that's right, John, you are next.
Well, to help Nancy, I will try to make this very quick.
Well, we did start late, guys, because we couldn't reach you.
That's right, it's your fault, Bob.
I hear you. I can handle it.
In regards to the new maintenance agreement, WCI's legal counsel, which was Cohen and Grisby, Chris Davies actually was very easy to work with. I was very happy in working with him. He met his timetable once he received the information from WCI. He has completed the red line copy that he reviewed that came from Tony. He also prepared a clean copy. This was completed basically yesterday, which he did send to Tony. This document has also been reviewed by David Caldwell of WCI, so hopefully the back and forth between Tony and Chris Davies can be from a legal standpoint only. I have a copy of the new agreement. Rather than, I think I'll have Diane send it to each of the members if they have any comments on it. From our standpoint, it will be the clean copy. I don't think we want to try to go through the red line copy. Let that be from a legal point of view. And this way, each of you, if you have any comments from our level at the PPAC, we can comment on it. In regards to the Exhibit B, the last time it was updated was 8/11/15, and I don't know if there's been any changes. Sarah, has there been any changes since then?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. The only comment was, Bob, you had sent an email regarding item 33.
That is correct.
Sarah gave an answer to that, which I'm gonna briefly give to you, but I'm not sure if things haven't changed since then, because what this stated was back on 3/27/2003, WCI did the title, and the company transferred the conversion easement land and all improvements by a bill of sale and grant of easement under this requisition number. The CDD accepted this at the time in 2003 when the bonds were issued. I think things may have changed between '03. We can try to research that. I don't know why, you're very adamant that, regarding your
But,
concern.
Yeah, WCI took back control, in other words, the maintenance agreement, on the bonds. And it was at the time that what's the community further, in Sevilla or Siena? That's the fourplexes.
Siena's right by the gate.
Sevilla, okay. When Sevilla had the problem of entering the preserve and doing, hiring somebody to go to the preserve and
Right.
do some cleaning.
Right.
At that point, we were cited, we as a community, and WCI responded to that litigation by taking this back. One of the methods that they responded was by taking back the responsibility for the preserves. When we had it, that brief period, we had engaged a contractor to do the work. That has all been put in abeyance, and we're no longer we're not paying for the woods and wetlands to go in there and do it. We were at one time, but we're no longer paying. And WCI is doing all that. So I'm not sure that ownership is correct, and that's all I was questioning is, I think if, I don't know how to research it legally. I don't know whether we need Tony to do that or whether we need Tetra Tech to do it. If Bill Vanderhaeg was still on the board, he knew how to do that kind of stuff.
All right,
And
Sarah
I have
has
a
some
very,
comments.
Very strong feeling that WCI is the owner of record and the party that's responsible for the maintenance of the preserves. And that includes, of course, the boardwalk.
This is Sarah again, sorry, I wanted to walk up and ask. My understanding, and speaking to David Caldwell, this email actually went between Joe and I, and it went between David and Joe in 2014, and then I just emailed Joe about it recently when this question came up. And their response is that WCI does own the preserve, but the pathway and the boardwalk was what is turned over and maintained by the CDD. So they did have woods and wetland.
You can't separate them because they're not separated. All of that boardwalk is in the preserve.
I think we need to probably talk to Tony, because.
I think so too.
Bob, Bob is absolutely right, that, WCI took control of the preserves, and part of what they had to do before it could ever be turned over to the CDD was there had to be a certain number of years of, proper maintenance and so forth, and they had to have South Florida Water Management's blessing on the turnover of the preserves, and they didn't have that. Now, whether the walkway and so forth, were done separately, I don't know, I think that's a Tony question.
Well, but Chris, you're also budgeting certain items in the
Well,
preserve.
we budget 10,000 for the, power washing every other year, but if you remember, it came up when Tracy was here, and this all came to light again, and we told Tracy, no, we're not paying for it, because Bob said we're not supposed to be. And so it was an every other year thing for us to budget for it. But we had previously paid for it. 2 years ago, we did pay for the power
Absolutely.
washing of the
Yeah, we
boardwalk.
did.
So that
We have been paying for it, and we, it hasn't been something that we needed to fight about, simply because we were gonna pay for it anyway as residents, one pocket versus another. And we just chose to kind of ignore this thing and say, okay, since we have to pay anyway as residents through HOA, and we have a system set up that would pay for it under PPAC, we would just keep it going that way. But, I guess there's a danger in doing that, I guess, because we're taking ownership for something we really don't have the right to.
Let's have Tony check that out. I
All
think
right,
that'll be the
I'll
answer.
try to review that with Tony before the next meeting.
Great.
And make sure it includes that pathway behind the preserve, behind Sienna.
That's
pathway?
two separate issues in a way,
Is it?
because that,
'Cause that has to be
that
maintained too.
pathway, based on your comments and recent
Belongs to
meetings,
Sienna,
belongs to Sienna. That's-
which adds another layer of
It's
complication.
not part of the preserve.
It is part of the preserve, but the tax maps show it as part of the Sienna property.
Okay, Sarah,
Yeah,
bring us up to date.
So-
It is part of the preservation tract, but he's correct, and part of it does belong to it's on Sienna's property, it's encroaching. WCI just had surveyors out there, they're re-surveying the path, and then they're most likely going to be working with the Sienna board to develop an easement, so that it takes the maintenance and responsibilities and the liability off of Sienna, since it's partially on their property, but they're just started that process.
And it's only partially on their property.
Correct.
Correct.
The first 100
How many
There's a
feet?
couple
or
of
so,
sections
couple hundred feet.
where it goes in and out and encroaches. And so it's correct that it would technically belong to them in those areas, but because WCI owns the land there, it's gonna be most likely an easement.
Okay. Then I will just review item 33 at this point, let that be a
Fine,
separate
That's
question.
fine. That's
Yep.
already being approached.
Okay.
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 That it?
Are you done?
All
I
right.
will relinquish my time to the, it only took me
That
6.
comment didn't go against Bob, that was John.
Yes.
Okay, Ron, you're working.
Okay, I'm up. 3 or 4 things to go over quickly. The electrical traffic sign. Remember, we had the discussion about purchasing it, and then the comment was, can we get one with solar panels in lieu of the battery?
Ron, could you get a little closer to the
Oh.
mic there?
Nope, we have
I
to
can't sit on
switch.
Chris's lap, that
No,
wouldn't
we
be
can switch.
appropriate.
We're switching chairs here. Oh, wait a minute, that can,
Oh, yeah, we'll just move that back.
No.
Chris, I'll have to give it back to you in a minute, Sarah,
Yeah,
so.
stay by. I'll interrupt.
All right, is that better?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. In talking with Securitas, who went back to the manufacturer, we've decided not to go with the solar panel. The primary reason has nothing to do with price, it has to do with employment. It takes about 2 to 3 hours to employ the thing with the solar panel because of the way it has to be positioned in order for it to work efficiently. And since we want to be able to move this thing throughout the community, throughout the year, we decided to stay with the rechargeable batteries. So the original bid was $49.15, so that's the item we're going with. So it's well below the 6,000 figure that you guys had authorized. So they're in the process now of purchasing that, and we should know in a week or so when we're gonna get them.
I'm actually gonna be purchasing it direct from the manufacturer,
Okay.
and so I did get the quote from them in the Pelican Preserve's name, and
Okay.
to set them up as a vendor, and we're working out the shipment
Great.
to the community right now.
Okay.
One question, the sign is a little bigger than what you currently have, is that correct? It's not the same one that.
It is the same
Securitas-
one.
I believe.
No, it should,
Why
the one I'm familiar with is a little different.
I'm not sure which one you're familiar with.
Well, the one we used in Ocean City, so.
Well, I can't
This is the one
respond to
in
that.
Pelican, Joe.
Okay, so I know, but we're working with the same vendor, and I had discussed this with this vendor 2 years ago, the same sign. And I thought the quote was about the same.
Well, I can't respond directly because I have never seen the one
So,
you're referring to.
Securitas purchased that specific one that you're using now?
That's
I know,
Securitas's
but
machine, that
It
one.
is.
But we're gonna be, excuse me, we're buying it from All Traffic, that's who we're buying.
All Traffic Solutions, right,
Yeah.
these guys are super.
Yeah, that's who we're
But-
purchasing from.
But I'm saying, it's not, do you know if that's the same sign that Securitas has?
I believe that's the
Yeah.
model.
It's
that-
very
That's-
similar, it does similar things.
I believe it's the model that's in Pelican currently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unless that's just an older sign, it might
Might-
look
I mean, they
slightly
had
different,
purchased
but it
that
has
some
the
years
same
ago,
function.
so
Yeah, they
it's
purchased-
conceivable they've updated it and maybe
Okay.
made it a little bit bigger.
Okay.
But that's generally what it's gonna look like, okay? And I-
Yeah,
All right, and I brought it up at the president's meeting this morning, mentioned to him that this is what we were going to do, and that if, as individual communities would like to borrow it, so they can get some information about traffic in their communities, I said that's one of the things we would be doing with that sign. And basically was positively received, okay?
Did you check the numbers to make, that was 54% of our traffic was going
It's,
over
I
35
I looked at the raw data, and it's 53.7% over 30 miles per hour,
Not 35.
not 35. So, I haven't gotten back to Don, for he and I to get together and make sure we're talking about the same thing, but my looking at the raw data that he had provided me, it appeared that it was over 30 miles an hour.
Do
But I
you
haven't
want
gotten
to
back
have
to
an
him.
amendment to the September?
Not until I've talked with him,
Because-
give him the opportunity to say no, that he's correct and here's why.
The reason I'm
Oh,
bringing this
I'm sorry,
up
go ahead.
is that that's what the supervisors will get at their next meeting where Pelican reports out.
Well, why don't we put in the minutes that number is being reviewed and may be corrected?
In our September
And,
minutes.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we need to amend, Diane.
well, I see what you're saying, the ones we've already approved,
Yeah, the ones we've already approved are the
Right.
next ones the supervisors get. and it
that's the
says
one they're gonna get, they're not gonna
54%.
get this one,
No,
okay.
Well, these won't go until November 5th, so. They're not
no,
gonna.
they get the September one.
Here's the September one.
They get the
The
September
one
one.
on.
the one we
on the
approved
bottom.
earlier.
Because we have to approve it at our next meeting.
Yeah, they got the one you just approved.
Yeah, okay, you're right, cause
So-
October won't be till November 12th.
So my suggestion is to not raise eyebrows unnecessarily, that we do one more amendment to the September minutes if we can.
Well, was that actually said at the
Well, I
meeting?
mean,
It's in
he
the
actually
minutes.
said, so I don't wanna change
No, no.
that portion of it, cause he said that. He said there was 54% were doing over
Right,
35,
okay.
that's what he said.
That's what he said.
So I don't wanna change that, 'cause
No,
that's what he said.
right.
Now, if we wanna, I don't know what we would add to the minutes, because.
You might wanna put a statement in these, our minute, the current.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking
Yeah,
of.
But they
right.
won't,
And,
they won't see these.
well, I'm
Well,
gonna
let's
be
do
at the
that.
November 5th meeting.
No.
Well, all I'm saying is, somebody who
I guess
Over
I'll
thirty
take
or
the-
over 35, you know.
whoever goes to that meeting is
Is that
very,
this,
Needs to have the
is
accurate
that this coming
information.
meeting, next
No.
week?
no,
That'll be November.
be the November meeting.
And November 5th, I'm scheduled to go to.
All right, then you can
So
answer.
then I can deal with it
Okay.
directly.
All right.
All right. But-
And I will also, in the report we do for October, that we give them for the November meeting, I will try and address that.
Oh, good. When do you submit that, Phil?
Well, I try and get it in soon enough so it gets into the book for that November meeting.
So that would be what, mid-October? Next week or
Yeah,
something?
well, it probably won't be because I'm out of town and I'm not sure I'll be in a position to do it. If I can, I'll try and get to it, but it may not be until like October 23rd, 24th kind of thing.
Okay, well, I'll try to get this resolved prior to that, so it'll be a
Okay.
clean piece of information.
Okay.
All right, the next
Okay.
CDD
And I'll talk
meeting,
to-
Phil, is a report required for PPAC?
You generally.
It's not on
the
the
first
agenda
meeting
for
of the
this
month,
one.
Not the second one, not the second one.
Okay,
No, not.
Okay.
Next week it's different
right.
reports. It'll be on the 5th.
Okay, reviewing post orders, we had a good meeting with Sarah, representing Castle, and Securitas. One of the things that came up at that meeting, and it was in your packet, concerning what instructions do we give our security personnel regarding access to private roads versus public roads. I've submitted that issue to Tony Piers, and I've gotten a response yesterday from him. So I've got an answer. I forwarded over to Securitas and Sarah to take a look at it and see if they can implement it. But basically, it says because public roads connect to the private roads, you cannot prevent someone from coming into Pelican Preserve, even if their destination is the private road and they're not on the access list. You can't prevent them from coming into the
Right.
community. What you can tell them, if they are observed in that area, they will be asked to leave the community. That's it. That's about all you can do.
But you're never gonna know unless somebody tells them, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So Tony recommends that we give those people a map when they drive through the gate, designating the public roads versus the private roads. So they can't say they didn't know they were on a private road.
How many people
So-
come in like that?
Uh,
Do we have did Securitas ever,
Probably not many, if at all, but as more and more people move into those areas, you'll have more and more people visiting, or
Well,
trying to
and-
get into those areas.
Well,
online.
and I'll tell you what I've observed, is like Friday, we have the truck come to pick up anything we want
Oh,
to
yeah,
dispose
yeah,
of.
yeah, yeah.
There are
Bulk
people that
pickup.
literally come into the communities, drive around in their pickup and just go
Really?
zigzagging in and out of neighborhoods to see if there's anything
Okay.
there that they wanna snag before the hook.
Okay, like again, unless, the most we can do, based on the rules, is to ask them to leave.
Yeah, I know, but it's just FYI,
But
it's
that's if they
happening.
try
Yeah.
to get into the private road area. In the public road, I'm not sure you can tell them anything.
but Nancy,
Quite frankly.
if it's a truck, if they're looking to take something, typically it's a truck going all over the place. At that point, I think Securitas should make a comment.
Well, who knows, Securitas doesn't know necessarily when they come through the gate that that's
What
what
they're
they're gonna
doing.
do.
What that truck is doing.
Yeah.
Well, if they don't have any specific place to go,
They could
But-
say they're a pool truck, they could say
They can
they're.
say anything. They can say anything.
Yeah.
Who knows what they're saying?
If they'd
I
been
don't
in
know
the,
how you,
commu-
I don't know how you check on it.
John, if they'd been in the community before to
Sure.
work on something at your house, they could say, you know,
They can say anything.
Yeah.
Because it's public roads. Okay, and I don't know, except for this one example, if it's happening in any other situations. Don't know.
yeah, I mean, they,
Who knows? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic to the problem, but we really haven't had a real issue in the community yet. And we never do.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
Exactly.
right. We're having a discussion about how to control golf carts and bicycles as they leave the community and then return to the community. We've got that golf cart path that's been opened up now for about a couple of years now, anyway. Most people don't know how to get onto it and get off of it, okay? So, I mean, the rule is if you're a bicycle or a golf cart, you go through the gate, coming and going, okay? And you should not be using the pedestrian path to get in and out of Pelican Preserve. And it's been observed that many bicyclists do use the the path, and apparently several golf carts have been observed using the path. So what we're thinking of doing is putting up a couple of flexible poles where the pergolas are, okay, that would prevent a golf cart from going through there. And if you're on a bicycle, you'd have to get off your bicycle and walk it through. You couldn't ride your bicycle through that safely. But it wouldn't prevent a pedestrian or someone with a stroller or something like that getting in and out, so, foot traffic.
Is that information in the monthly notice that you put out?
Yes.
Yes.
She's pretty good
Yes.
at that.
Yes,
Sarah's done a
yes,
very good
absolutely,
job.
absolutely. So we're looking at that. It's an inexpensive thing to do, okay? But obviously, before we did something like that, we'd have to communicate out to the entire community, so everybody knows, by the way, if you use your golf cart this way, you're gonna hit a pole. It's not gonna create damage really, because it's a flexible pole, but, it'll scrape their golf cart a little bit in any case.
One of the things that one of the supervisors suggested, last week was that, anybody, what was I gonna say? Oh, Sarah, that not everybody has email. And so just having it in your weekly updates or once a month when you update it is not reaching everybody in the community. And the suggestion was, that like when the town center billing goes out or something else goes out, that's actually mailed to a resident, also have a notice in it about it. And I'm just throwing that out there because that was a suggestion that came
I
up.
think that would be a rather expensive thing to mail something to all the residents.
If it's in
in
something
your bill.
already,
Something already being.
Oh, I
mailed.
see what you're
Mail.
saying.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Except I don't think they mail out the quarterly,
No.
does everybody get a mailed,
for the
No, you have a
town
coupon.
center?
Yeah.
Town center.
You got a coupon.
Yeah.
We just got it. In
No,
fact, we-
town center, town center.
towns?
Yeah, but this, see, I don't know that they would
Yeah.
appreciate it, because this has to do with the master association at the town center.
I don't know,
Crossing, because that's technically two different corporations.
I understand that, all I'm saying, don't
I hear
shoot
you.
this messenger.
I hear-
All
no,
saying
I'm
is
just
the
trying to-
concern- All I'm saying is the concern is.
Process.
How many bullets do you have? Did you run out yet?
I got a couple more to shoot.
Yeah, what's
Whatever.
wrong with the messenger?
Yeah, right. I don't know. But you're absolutely right. I know at least one lady who doesn't have email, for example. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
So I don't know how she gets information, quite frankly.
That's Susu? Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
and the supervisors
Maybe the
are
only one.
concerned about Gateway as well. This has come up for discussion previously, and they're concerned, and they're talking about putting things in utility bills or some way to get to those people. So they're concerned about the totality of the
Yeah.
community.
Okay. Maybe we just need to make a list of people who don't have email, and then those get something mailed to them.
I'm not maintaining that list.
Should be a pretty small list, I would think.
I don't know, we've got a couple on our street.
Couple,
Yeah.
all right, I mean, that's, even if it's 50, that sure is better than sending it out to
Glenn?
1,500
For
households.
instance.
Well, maybe-
Okay, let me
We're-
make note of that, and let me move along. One of the other things we're looking at is the resident access list, and how names get put on there, who gets put on there, and then in addition to that, how vendors are handled in terms of getting passes that come into the community. People like pool companies, cleaning services, that type of thing. Because normally, I don't call the gate to tell them that people are coming in. So they do get passes, so we're looking at all of that stuff right now. Sarah recently updated some of that information. I think it covers most of it fairly well, but we're still having a few items that we're talking about.
I gotta go.
Sarah, I'm gonna ask you to come back up for a moment. Sarah came up with some interesting, positive suggestions on how to improve golf cart registration that we're considering. I'll let her talk about it.
Sure, so we're, currently have the two-part ticketing system that the rovers put out on vehicles that are parked on the street overnight and things like that. We're purchasing a secondary, different color, two-part ticket that is only gonna be used for unregistered golf carts, so that when they come across one, they'll note the resident's address, where the golf cart was seen, whatever the case, and they'll put that on the golf cart stating that they need to go get their golf cart registered. And since it's a two-part, we'll be able to monitor and measure how many of those are being issued on a daily basis, to actually see how big this problem really is. Castle Group has also put together a three-part flyer that I have a picture I can show you, but it pretty much just calls them out and says, you need to register your golf cart, and then it has the golf cart registration, and it also has the rules of the road, and we're gonna leave those, we're gonna monitor the town center, and anytime we walk by and see one, we're gonna put that right there on the golf cart for all to see, so.
And some of the, we brought this up at this morning's president's meeting, some of them asked for a copy themselves, so they can hand it out to some of their residents, especially either renters or new residents. One of the presidents actually stated that after they moved into the community, it took them like a month before they realized they had to register their carts. Okay, so we're trying to get the word out and get that golf cart registration issue under control, if you will. That's positive, I think. The last thing I'll just mention is briefly, we're reviewing all of the documents that Sarah's been giving out to new residents and renters. I think it was 3 or 4 individual documents that you hand out to them. Looking at that to see what needs to be revised, what needs to be re-emphasized, things of that nature. And in that process, one of the folks that's on my working group really saw the need that what we really need to develop for the community is a guidebook that gives all of the resident information that someone needs to know in one place. Because Sarah puts out information, the Alliance puts out information, Town Center puts out information. Lots of different individual homeowner associations do the same thing. And some of it agrees with each other, and some of it has been noted that it conflicts with each other. So we brought that up at the president's meeting this morning, that maybe what we need is a guidebook for the entire community. Lots of discussion, very positive discussion about what needs to be put in that. This goes beyond, I think, my working group and the mandate that you guys gave us, because it's got a lot more information. It would be a lot more information than just security or safety kinds of things. But we're looking at, maybe that's one of the things we need to do, and if we did that, it could be put online, it could be used as a source material for the new resident introductory sessions that Sarah puts out, or any other new resident or renter that comes in the community. So it may go a little bit beyond what our original mandated, but I think it might be a good idea. So we're looking at that. And I'm done, subject to your questions or comments.
Any questions for Ron? Okay, thank you. Gateway meeting schedule. Diane, where are we up to?
Just the 19th of November. We could add December 3rd and 17th.
Yeah, we've got assignments through November, I believe.
Yeah, through the 19th.
Do we want to do the December 3rd and December 17th meetings, or take that up next month?
What do you think, Phil?
Probably, let's pick it up next month.
Okay,
All right.
easy done. Committee member requests and audience comments. None, yes? None?
Nope.
Okay. The next meeting is October 8th.
No.
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 That's
Oh,
today.
no, that's-
November 12th.
All right,
November-
yeah.
After
whenever.
Veterans
You
Day.
guys were just waiting to see if I said that.
Yes.
Okay,
November 12th.
November 12th. Hearing no other business, is there a motion for adjournment?
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right,
Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Was this a record? No, I guess it's not.
No,
Oh, no.
that's the
No.
budget
Oh,
one was the
no.
budget
Oh,
meeting.
no.
I remember now.
Yeah, forget it.
Are what you want me to send out to everybody?
I'll send you an email.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Sarah's copy, you know what, do you have a copy of what she did? It has the numbers.
need electric